You know the Shane Dawson controversy at the moment, which has made 15-year-old chicks everywhere do what 15-year-old chicks do best, which is just go on social media, and essentially the entire argument of their case can be summed up into this. He's made them do that. And there's a reason that he does that, and that's because he understands the mechanics of YouTube very well. That's why he's been around for so long and has maintained consistently a very large following. It's because he understands it and he executes it, and he is remaining perpetually relevant to his audience. How old is Shane Dawson now? 65? I remember that guy from the beginning. He was one of the original founding forefathers. He's basically the Thomas Jefferson of YouTube, and he's still here. It's honestly like if Donald Trump was running against Benjamin Franklin in the next election. In digital age, that is a really impressive footprint to be maintaining for that long of a period of time. How many other YouTubers have done that? I bet you there's going to be a bunch of people that just list them down in the comments, to which my response very quickly and succinctly is, shut up. The point is, I know that guy. And he's a really good example of a self-help principle whose name escapes me at the moment, so I'm just going to have to pad until I can think about it. But essentially what he is doing is he is remaining perpetually relevant. How is he remaining perpetually relevant? Because he is, and here it is. That was actually pretty good. I've got to be pretty proud of myself that I didn't stop talking just then. I'd be really good as one of those cricket commentators that just sits there and goes, and he goes towards the ball, bats it, and no, nothing exciting happened as always because this is cricket. Anyway, buy some KFC. He is a really good example of the self-help principle, which is that you fall in love with your customer, not your product. I'm the exact opposite. I'm really not the right person to be talking about this. The last 2 videos that I've released, I'm just sitting there and be like, actually, it's getting lazy. Anyway, I'm just going to show me turning on my own camera. But Shane Dawson is a really good example of that. Obviously, I've got my own motivations as to why I'm not falling in love with a customer, which is that I'm trying to cram down their throat why they should be voting for a political party, because I think that that benefits everyone. But obviously, if I was going to fall in love with my customer, I'd just sit there down the main line of like, all politicians are fact, all of them. You don't have to do any research. Just hear a guy who also hasn't done any research reaffirm what you already knew. But obviously, because I've got a bigger cause in life than to just get a bunch of clicks. I'm just trying to maintain a big enough audience that I can have an impact in an election that would benefit the entire country, because all you need is 51%, and especially when it just comes to the youth vote, you need just a smaller amount of that youth vote to be voting for the only major party that can actually put a dent in huge corporate interests in this country. But anyway, look, this is not the point of this video. As soon as I start talking about it, it just turns into like a 60-minute video of me basically being some 70-year-old lecturer going, and also the dismissal of Gough Whitlam, that was a coup. But let's talk more about Shane Dawson, because there's probably going to be a lot of Americans clicking over this going, who the fuck is Gough Whitlam? Gough Whitlam is essentially the closest thing Australia had to a Nelson Mandela, so a really lazy, nowhere near a severe version. Anyway, but he's great. He is great. He should be one of our founding forefathers. Sorry, let's talk about Shane. So there's obviously reasons that are bigger than that, where you shouldn't be falling in love with your customer. But if you're just out to make quick cash, and on top of that, I do as well. I listen to the responses of my customers, and I try and tailor half of my content to them, so I can just be like, huh? You like people working in pubs, do you? Yeah, you've worked in a pub. They serve beers, don't they? They do serve beers. Yeah. And there's always some chick that's perpetually sarcastic, and it's pretty much because she's not hot enough to get any cock. Yeah, that's my workmate, Charisse. Yeah. Did you know that your penalty rates have been taken away? No, I didn't know that. That's basically the strategy of that, right? But Shane Dawson has been able to maintain this consistent popular support because he's been able to evolve along with YouTube as it's evolved. If you go back and look at his previous content, it's very of its time. He's very in touch with the zeitgeist. He gets it. He gets what people are moving and gravitating towards, and he makes content that is relevant to that. This is what happens with a lot of businesses and why there's always this 90% business failure rate. Now, there's a lot of other factors that contribute into that. Obviously, there's things like, if you want to open up a traditional Afghani restaurant, probably not a good idea to do that in Cairns, Queensland. But like with a bunch of, there's all these other factors that but a major factor is that you're not responding to what your customer wants. And this becomes doesn't matter if you're in a career, it doesn't matter if you're in a small business. In general, a lot of people just say, no, this is what my customer should want, and they're arrogant about it. And so they keep trying to cram that down someone's throat. Let's go back to the Afghani restaurant, right? This is why you see with a lot of country town Chinese restaurants, first of all, the food is so shiny that if you get sweet and sour pork, you can look at it and you can essentially do your hair in its reflection. Why is that? Because they figured out that Bogans really like MSG, even more than Chinese people do. So they've made food according to them. That is the wiliness of the Chinese. Again, here we go, just constantly giving props to Asians. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say something negative about Asians because of how many positive things I've said on this channel. Why are they so sleepy? If you're an Asian, can you please write in and justify this, why 70% of them that you see walking around are still in pajamas at 3 p.m? You people are more sleepy than stoners, and I'm pretty sure that you're not stoners. But they get a lot of things right. And a huge, massive factor of this is in a lot of countries, it's so good that I'm using it, the ultimate pinnacle of success, the Red Dragon in Port Macquarie, much more successful than Amazon. But there is they are, in a lot of ways they are, good for them. Good on you, who your name definitely was something like Shenzhen, but you've changed it to Doris. The reason that she's changed it to Doris again is because she's fallen in love with the customer of Bogans. She's realised that Bogans are just like, oh my god, chili? No, the spiciest thing I want is pepper. So they put pepper next to it. What do they give you instead of chopsticks? A fucking plastic spork. They have figured out how to acclimatise Chinese food to the Bogan palate. This is not the same as when you go into Sydney. There's obviously a lot of those really Bogan-esque Chinese restaurants, but then there's ones that are that traditional Chinese, and that's because you've got a bunch of ABC arty knobs that are just like, this just reminds me of when I did a story in Shenzhen. So they want that taste, right? People in the country do not want that. I know it firsthand as a result. So they have changed their product to suit them. Do you see the difference there? There's a lot of people that, like, when they start up a business, they have an idea in their head, then it fails, and then they blame everyone else for it. There's a simple marketing strategy, and it pretty much boils down to this. I can't even remember who it was, but it was just this guy in a cowboy hat, and he goes, this is the secret to marketing. You figure out what people want, and then you give it to them. It's a magic formula, and a lot of people don't do it clearly, because the failure rate of most businesses is 9 out of 10 in most countries, in most Western countries where the economic conditions are as good as humanity has ever seen them, and they still have a failure rate of 90%. Not good enough. I personally know how easy it is to run a restaurant. There's a lot of things that also factor into this as well, is that most restaurants, they're spending 16 hours a day just pumping out shit at people just going, where's my fried rice? So they don't even have time to think about this, but you do have to put effort into that. If you're a YouTuber, trust me, you have enough time to think about that. But this is what Shane Dawson has done. He's done the country Chinese business model of YouTube. He has adapted his content and changed the flavour of it to suit the time. That is a success formula that will suit you for the rest of your life. It will be constantly serving you. And then anyone else who gets complacent and thinks like, no, this worked last year, so it'll work this year. Those are the people that get chewed out. You need to be hyper aware of this. So, as your homework, I want you to think about this. Just so you can get it in your head that you've done this in the past as well. Everyone has got examples of doing these things in their life. Actually, there's probably a lot of losers there that are just like, I still watch the Comedy Channel. But I used to know a guy that used to do that, and he used to just be constantly wrapping, God, how OCD is this? Constantly wrapping a coat hanger that he'd stretched out like this. It was really scary. It was like he was perpetually just waiting for someone to be like, I want to get an abortion, but I don't want to pay for a doctor. And be like, I'm ready to go. He was just constantly wrapping it back and forth, over and over, watching the Comedy Channel, which is the least funny channel on Foxtel, sitting there just going, I don't know why I was talking about that. Look, I want you to think about, write down moments in your life where you adapted to a situation, that you were doing something, you noticed that it wasn't working, and then you changed your approach. Because that is one of the core principles of self-help. One of the core principles of self-help is recognizing what you're doing, seeing if it's working. If it's not working, change it. Most people don't change it. They just keep doing the same thing. I'll see you next week.